Hi, my name is Dr. Kirsten Krawczyk and I'm an educational psychologist and wellbeing practitioner working for Northamptonshire County Council. Today I'd like to talk to you about something called emotion coaching, and this is the first of a series of 4 videos that myself and Dr. Sarah Modi will be in, just talking through the process of emotion coaching and why it might be useful for you. Now, it's important for me to say that actually some of the examples we use might not feel relevant for every single person watching this video. I apologise for that. There's not much we can do. We can't cover all the bases in a short video like this, but please do have a watch and see if you can find ways to make this work relevant for yourself and your particular situation. Now, the important thing to say about emotion coaching is that it's all about emotions, and it's basically a relational approach. It's an approach that looks at supporting children and young people to manage their big feelings and more appropriately manage their behaviours through a relationship with a key adult. And that might be a key adult at home, or it could be somebody else that they know and get along really well with. The point of emotion coaching is that we're supporting children and young people to manage those big feelings so that they can use those skills later in their life and cope with those feelings when they arise, because ultimately we all have feelings that arise at different occasions in our life for our entire life. So that's why we think it's a useful strategy and way forward. So I guess the first thing to say is that we're all born with an innate ability to experience emotions. Every single person's born with an ability to feel sadness, fear, loneliness, anger, joy. However, what we aren't born with is an ability to cope with those big feelings. We don't naturally have coping skills and strategies for managing those big feelings when they arise. And so what we need as children is we need opportunities to learn to experience that emotion and learn how to cope with it. And often we do that through the support of a trusted adult. Now, it's important to say as well that emotion coaching might not be appropriate for all occasions. For example, if your child's about to run out into the road and there's a car coming towards them, you aren't going to emotion coach them through that scenario. You're going to maybe grab them by the hand and pull them to safety, and that's completely fine. But you can use emotion coaching as a way to repair any damage that's done by that action. So, for example, if the child's been very scared by being grabbed and pulled away from the road, they might feel a bit angry or upset or sad towards you. And so in that scenario, you can say to them, darling, I'm so sorry that I had to take your hand and pull you away so quickly there. I was just really worried because you were in the middle of the road and I didn't want you to get hurt, because it's my job to keep you safe. Okay, so anyway, there are 4 main steps to emotion coaching, and today I'd like to share with you step 1. And step 1 is really about considering the child's behaviour and what that behaviour is communicating. And it's about thinking about, what are their actions trying to tell me? What are the feelings underneath those actions? And then as an adult, we need to empathise with that emotion ourselves, to feel it ourselves, and then find ways to support the young person through our experience of having that emotion at some point in our lives in the past. So within this step, it's really important to recognise that all behaviour is a form of communication, but sometimes it can be really difficult to interpret what that behaviour is saying. And sometimes that's because the child's confused with their behaviour and they're lashing out. And sometimes it's because actually as adults, we're bringing our own emotions to the table or to the situation. We're feeling frustrated or angry or upset. And actually that's getting in the way of us being able to really understand what the child's trying to tell us. So as adults, it's really important that we pause and we take a moment to understand our own feelings and the things that we're bringing to the situation in front of us. So sometimes as well, that's something that's quite interesting, is that we can think we're feeling a certain way, but actually underneath it we're feeling differently. So for example, let's say you're trying to help your child with homework and they refuse to accept your help. You can think that you're feeling annoyed or upset because the child is saying that they don't want your help and you're annoyed that they're not listening. But actually what you might be feeling is a bit of rejection, that you've put yourself out there to try and support and help somebody and they've said they don't want that help. And actually in that moment, it's really important that we recognise that personal trigger of ours and think, actually, I need to be careful that I'm not reacting to a feeling of rejection that I'm having here. When actually what's going on is the child's really frustrated with the piece of work they're doing and they're trying desperately to do it by themselves and be independent. So it's really important that we recognise what we're responding to, whether we're responding to ourselves and our own triggers or something that the child is presenting with. And the way that we notice and recognise the things that the child's trying to communicate to us is by really watching carefully and observing, and not just listening to the things that they're saying to us, but watching their tone of voice, their body language, their posture, and the way that they're communicating with us, the sort of things that they're doing. So for example, let's say my child's refusing to do their homework. We might think that they're communicating that they're annoyed, and they might be saying, you know, I don't want to do my homework, I want to play with my friends. And we might think that they're simply communicating that they wish they weren't doing their homework and they want to be out doing something more enjoyable instead. But actually what they might be communicating is that they're finding the work a little bit difficult, or they're finding the work challenging because they're not doing the work with their peers as they would do at school. Instead, they're being expected to work independently, completely on their own, and they don't have any of those opportunities for social interaction and connection with their friends as they might do at school instead. So it's really important that we recognise this and think about it in slightly different ways. I think as adults, if we think about that and consider, would I respond to defiance in the same way that I would respond to sadness or loneliness? Hopefully we get a different answer. I don't think most of us would respond in the same way to a child that's feeling really sad or really lonely, compared to a child that we feel is being defiant. And so by being able to make that shift in our heads helps us to be able to respond differently to the child or young person. As I said as well, we also might need to think about our own feelings and the things that we're bringing to the table, whether we're really tired. Perhaps we've got other children that are asking for us to help them with different things at home as well. I mean, parenting's really hard, isn't it? We're splitting our time between lots of different people and lots of different demands. So it's really important that we acknowledge that there are lots of different challenges for different people and for caregivers all round, despite trying our best to support our children and, you know, young people with their big feelings and their emotions. Sometimes in the busyness, we might be tempted to skip over the emotion part of things with children and say, just, you know, it's really important that you get this work done, please just do this work. When actually what we really need to be thinking about is that this is an opportunity for us to teach that young person about the feelings that they're having and say that it's okay to have those feelings. And so there we might need to say something that acknowledges their feelings. So something like, I understand that doing this work at home can be really difficult, and I understand that you might be feeling a little bit lonely while you're doing it on your own. And that just helps children to maybe feel a little bit less lonely in their experience, so that they don't feel like they're the only person that ever feels that way. It's really important that we connect with that feeling before we try and speak to our children or young people about this as well. It's the thing that helps us to develop a really empathic mindset, and then it changes our whole tone of voice and the way of speaking. So let's say with the example of the child feeling lonely, we need to then actually be brave enough to take ourselves to a place where we felt lonely before in the past. And that can change our entire approach to speaking to the child or young person. So instead of, you know, just going, yeah, I get that you're lonely and this, you know, that you're not wanting to do this work and it's hard for you because you're not at school. Actually, it changes it when we connect to the feeling of loneliness. Instead, we become more empathic and our whole body posture changes, our tone of voice, our facial expression changes to something a little bit more like, you know, I get that you're feeling lonely. It's hard, isn't it? And it's difficult that you're trying to complete this work at home instead of at school. Those two different ways of communicating the exact same message are received very differently depending on how we say it. And so it's really important that we consider the way that we talk to children and young people about feelings and their big emotions and the way that they're reacting. This is one of the first ways to help children to understand their own feelings, by showing them that we understand them as well. Okay. I'll leave the video there. Thank you for watching. Please watch the next video by my colleague, Dr. Sarah Modi, as she goes through step 2 of the process.